"You're embarrassing this family." My wife, Jessica, hissed across the polished mahogany table. The laughter that had filled the dining room dropped dead like a bird flying into a window. Her words hit harder than a punch. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The room went still, too still. Her brother, Troy, snorted from his end of the table. "Deadbeat," he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. I blinked, just blinked. My chest thudded slow and heavy. I wasn't sure if I heard right. We were having Sunday dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, wine. Jessica's family, as usual, all gathered in her father's house in Ohio. I'd flown back from deployment 2 days ago. I hadn't even unpacked yet. Jet lag was dragging me by the spine, and now this? And then the door opened. A gust of August heat slipped in as Mark, Jessica's sister's husband, stepped in, still in his National Guard uniform, the patches dark with sweat. He looked straight at me, his face turned pale, and then he saluted, sharp, clean. "Sir," he said. Jessica's dad's fork clattered against his plate and fell to the floor. Jessica's sister, Lauren, went the color of unbaked bread dough. Troy's mouth dropped. For the first time, silence wasn't from discomfort, but confusion. You see, none of them knew. None of them knew I was a captain. Special Forces. Ops classified enough that even my wife only knew I was somewhere in the Middle East. I didn't talk about medals. I didn't hang my uniform in the living room. I'd rather be underestimated. But now the masks were off. Mark was still standing at attention, not blinking. Jessica snapped at him. "Sit down, Mark. Don't be weird." He didn't move. "Ma'am," he said slowly, eyes locked on me. "Your husband, he saved my unit 6 months ago. He airlifted us under fire in Tikrit. I thought he died in the crash. You could have heard a pin drop in that dining room." I looked at Jessica. Her face didn't change. "Why didn't you tell them?" Mark asked, looking between us. "They said you were a—" He stopped himself. Jessica stood up. "Because he's nothing special," she said, cold and flat. "He acts like some mystery hero. But all he does is disappear for months and come back expecting applause." My stomach tightened like a fist. "You told them I was unemployed?" I said slowly, voice trembling but not from fear. "No," she said, too fast. "I just didn't correct them. Maybe if you were actually here instead of playing soldier." Troy started laughing. "This is golden. So you're not a loser after all, huh?" he said, raising his glass like a jackass. I didn't respond. I just watched her. Jessica, the woman I married 7 years ago, the woman who had cried at our wedding, clutched my hand at my mother's funeral, sent me care packages when I was overseas. That Jessica. But this wasn't her. Not anymore. This Jessica was dressed like a trophy. Tight red dress, dripping with lip gloss, nails like daggers. Her words were venom and her smirk said she'd already won something. But what? Then I noticed something. Mark wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at her. No, he was avoiding her. His eyes were darting around like a man waiting for a bomb to go off. And then I knew. I didn't want to know, but I knew. She didn't just hide who I was from her family. She had a reason. I leaned forward, hands folded, voice calm. "How long, Jessica?" Her eyes narrowed. "How long what?" "You and Mark." The table exploded. Lauren gasped. Jessica's father choked. Mark stood up so fast he knocked over a chair. "What the hell are you talking about?" Jessica snapped. Mark looked like he was going to throw up. "Don't lie now," I said, still calm. "You're not good at it." She rolled her eyes. Rolled her damn eyes. "What does it matter?" she said. "You're never here. What did you think would happen? A woman gets lonely." Lauren screamed at Mark. "You told me it was over. That it was one night." Mark didn't speak. Just stared at the floor. Jessica sat down like nothing had happened, picked up her wine, and sipped it. "Well, this dinner got exciting." I didn't move. My heart wasn't even racing. Just this eerie, terrifying calm. She leaned in and whispered, "Maybe if you'd been more of a man at home, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere." I looked at her, really looked, and I swear, I didn't recognize the face across the table. And for the first time since I came home, I wished I hadn't. The drive home was silent. Not peaceful silence. The kind that buzzes under your skin like a mosquito in the dark. Jessica didn't come back with me. She stayed behind, probably to mop up the mess with a new web of lies. I didn't care. At least not then. I just needed air, space, time. But I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of the house I'd paid for, listening to the clock tick like a countdown. Her perfume still lingered in the sheets, some expensive thing she insisted on wearing every day, even to the grocery store. Vanilla and poison. I wasn't an idiot. You don't do what I do for a living and miss signs. You just hope the signs are wrong. And God knows I'd been ignoring them. The late-night texting, the sudden workouts. The phone flipped face down every damn time she set it on the counter. The giggles when I asked who she was talking to. Just the girls, she'd say every single time. I should have known. Hell, I did know. I just didn't want to see it. The next morning, I opened her laptop. She rarely used it. She was always on her phone, but old habits die hard. My hands shook as I typed in the password. My name, all lowercase. I didn't know whether to laugh or break something. Email, socials, boring. I was about to close it when I found a folder in her desktop trash bin called Receipts. Curiosity 1. It was full of screenshots, messages, flight bookings, photos. There was one of her and Mark in a hotel room, lying on white sheets, her face turned toward him, smiling like a woman in love. I stared at it for 5 minutes straight. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. She was wearing the same necklace I gave her on our anniversary. There were messages, too. Graphic. Dirty. Way too detailed for just a one-night thing. They'd been sneaking around for almost a year. Hotels when I was gone. Quick hookups in his truck. Even once in the guest room at her sister's house while Lauren was out with the kids. My jaw locked so hard it hurt. I didn't know if I was going to cry or punch a hole in the wall. I wanted to call Mark. I wanted to drag him out of his little suburban house and beat him in front of the neighbors. But more than anything, I wanted to know why. Why throw away everything? Why betray someone who trusted her? Why turn into this cruel, manipulative, cheating witch? But I already knew the answer. Because she could. Because people like Jessica never think they'll get caught. And even if they do, they think they can lie their way out of it. Cry, twist the story, flip it around so it's your fault somehow. And maybe I'd buy it. Maybe I'd forgive her. Maybe I'd blame the distance, the job, myself. But not this time. I copied everything. Every file. Every message. Every godforsaken image. And then I closed the laptop and sat back in the chair, staring out the window, watching the world go on like it didn't just collapse around me. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Resolve. This wasn't going to be another heartbreak story. I wasn't going to be the idiot who stuck around while she ran off with the next loser in uniform. She wanted to play dirty? Fine. I knew how to win a war, even if it meant burning everything to the ground. She came home the next evening like nothing had happened. Heels clicking on the hardwood. The smell of her perfume hitting before she even walked in the room. The nerve of her, to waltz into our house like she hadn't nuked our marriage less than 24 hours ago. I sat on the couch, laptop open, folder titled Receipts already up on the screen. I didn't say a word. She glanced at me, flicking her hair like she was on a runway, not the scene of a crime. "You're home early," she said, dropping her purse on the entryway table. "Didn't think you'd have the balls to stick around." I didn't answer. I just turned the screen toward her. Her eyes flicked down, and for the first time in a long time, she flinched. I watched her face carefully. That perfect, smug expression cracked like old paint. Her mouth twitched. Her nostrils flared. Then, as fast as it came, it vanished. She crossed her arms. "What, you been spying on me now? That's real healthy." "You're cheating on me, Jessica," I said, voice calm, controlled. "With your sister's husband. And not just once." She rolled her eyes. Again, like it was some kind of nervous tic. "It was a mistake. I was lonely. You were always gone. There's over 70 screenshots here, I said. You weren't lonely. You were busy. She laughed. Laughed. So what, you gonna cry about it now? You left me alone for months, Tyler. You think a woman just sits around twiddling her thumbs while her husband plays commando overseas? I was serving my country, I snapped, finally standing. You were screwing your brother-in-law in your sister's guest room. Don't pretend this was some desperate accident. You planned it. Again and again. She shrugged. Maybe if you were around more, I wouldn't have had to. You're a ghost, Tyler. You love being a soldier more than you ever loved me. You could have left, I said. She smirked. And give up the house? The car? Your benefits? Nah. Why leave when I could have both? That hit harder than any bullet I'd ever dodged. She wasn't even sorry. Not a single ounce of guilt. It was all a game to her. A win-win. She kept the perks of being a soldier's wife while getting her kicks behind my back. You disgust me, I said. Funny, she replied. You used to say I was the best thing that ever happened to you. Yeah, I said bitterly. And now I see just how wrong I was. She turned away, walked into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine like we weren't standing in the middle of a war zone. You're going to regret this, I said. She raised an eyebrow. Oh? What, you gonna cry to your lawyer? Good luck. Everything's in my name now. You didn't even notice I changed the paperwork while you were away. Did you? I stared at her. No, she wouldn't. I'm filing for divorce, she said, sipping. And I'll be taking the house. You can keep your medals. She smiled, and something in me snapped. Not in rage, but clarity. She thought she'd won. But Jessica didn't know who she was dealing with anymore. I wasn't the naive soldier boy who believed in her smiles and promises. I was done. Done playing nice. I walked out that night and didn't look back. She thought she ended the marriage. But I was just getting started with the war. It hit me 3 days later. Not the betrayal that came like a slap in the face, but the ache, the slow burn, the kind of pain that doesn't scream, doesn't bleed. It just sits with you, quietly, like an old injury that flares up every time it rains. I checked into a cheap motel off I-71. No frills, no room service, just 4 beige walls and silence. The bed was hard. The sea rattled like it was dying. But I didn't care. It was better than sleeping next to a woman who made a fool out of me. For the first time in years, I didn't have orders to follow. No mission. No uniform. Just a ring on my finger that started to feel like a handcuff. I kept going back to that moment at the dinner table. You're embarrassing this family. She said it so easily. Like I was the problem. Like I was the disgrace. And her family nodded along, until Mark opened his mouth. Then they all turned white. I should have seen it. Looking back, it all makes sense now. The way Troy always looked down on me. The way Jessica's sister would never make eye contact. How her dad always avoided asking about my job. Like he assumed I was just unemployed trash leeching off his daughter. Jessica let them believe it. She wanted them to. And I kept playing the loyal husband, calling home from Afghanistan, buying her birthday gifts from war zones, flying back on 2 hours of sleep just to make her feel like she mattered. What a joke. What a sick, cruel joke. One night in the motel, I found myself staring at the ceiling, fists clenched, breathing like I was still in a war zone. Not because of gunfire, but because of her voice in my head. Her laugh. Her lies. I was lonely. You're never here. You left me no choice. Like it was my fault. I grabbed my phone. Thought about calling her. Just screaming. Getting it all out. But I knew what would happen. She'd just talk in circles. Gaslight me. Twist the blade again. No, I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. Instead, I called someone else. My buddy Reyes, the only guy who had been with me in that crash in Tikrit. The one who saw me pull Mark's limp body out of the rubble and drag him through gunfire to the evac chopper. Damn, Tyler, he said when I told him. That's cold. I'm sorry, man. I didn't answer. Couldn't. You saved that punk's life. And he thanks you by screwing your wife. Reyes paused. You want me to handle it? I laughed for the first time in days. No. I'm not putting you on babysitting duty. We talked for an hour. about the desert, about the team, about the real things that mattered. It reminded me who I was. Not a broken husband, not a victim, but a man who'd survived worse than betrayal. That night I took off the ring, set it on the table, just looked at it. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was meaningless. A band of metal tied to lies. I left it there when I checked out the next morning. Didn't even turn around. Because Jessica hadn't just cheated on me with another man. She betrayed the version of myself I gave her. And the emotional storm? It didn't drown me. It forged me. Divorce used to be a word I'd never let pass my lips. Felt like failure. Like giving up. I'd seen soldiers patch up marriages after worse. Long tours, PTSD, even cheating. They'd drag their broken relationships through therapy like wounded bodies across a battlefield. I respected it. But I wasn't dragging this one. I was leaving it behind. The decision came quietly. No screaming. No dramatic scene. Just me sitting in a lawyer's office 3 days after checking out of that motel, flipping through pages while Greg Swanson, my attorney, explained what came next. She put the house in her name 6 months ago, he said. But if we prove she did it fraudulently while you were deployed, we can challenge it. She planned this, I said flatly. She didn't just fall into another man's bed. She was preparing the fallout. Greg nodded. Then we'll be just as prepared. He asked if I wanted to go after everything: house, alimony, public exposure. I didn't hesitate. All of it. Because here's the truth people don't talk about. When you're cheated on, it's not about revenge. It's about justice. It's about making sure the person who torched your world doesn't walk away smiling while you sweep up the ashes. Jessica thought I'd crawl away quietly. She thought I'd feel so humiliated, I wouldn't fight back. She had no idea what kind of man she married. I filed for divorce that same day, cited infidelity, submitted the folder of screenshots as evidence. Greg's assistant nearly choked on her coffee scrolling through them. Part of me felt sick reliving it. But the other part felt good. Real good. I called Lauren, too, Jessica's sister. She hadn't spoken to me since the dinner explosion. But when she picked up, her voice was hoarse. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know. I swear to God, Tyler, I didn't know." "She said it was one night," I said. "She lied," Lauren snapped. I checked her texts. She's been meeting him since before our anniversary. She slept with him while I was pregnant, Tyler. I didn't know what to say. There was a long silence. "I've filed too," she said quietly. "We're done. 2 marriages. Burned to the ground because 2 selfish people couldn't keep their hands off each other." I should have been sad. But I wasn't. I felt clear. Free. That weekend, I moved into a temporary apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy, just a bed, a chair, and peace. I started running again. I cleaned my rifle. I even called my mom, told her what was happening. She cried, told me she never trusted Jessica but didn't want to say anything. Funny how people keep quiet until the truth's already scorched everything down to the foundation. But the real closure came when Jessica called me. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity is a stubborn thing. "Ty," she said, voice syrupy, like we were still playing house. "Can we talk?" "About what?" I asked, deadpan. I didn't expect you to actually file. You cheated. I made a mistake. 70 times? I said. "That's not a mistake. That's a hobby." She went quiet. Then, "You're really going through with this?" "I already did." Her tone changed instantly, sharp, venomous. "You think you're going to ruin me? I'll drag your name through the mud if you try to take my house." I laughed. Genuinely. "Jessica, you already did that. I'm just cleaning it up." And I hung up. That call sealed it. I'd made the right choice. The marriage was dead. But I wasn't. Fallout isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a slow collapse of everything familiar. Like watching snow bury a house, inch by inch, until one day the roof caves in and you realize you were never going to shovel your way out. The news spread through Jessica's family faster than a California wildfire. Troy, her loudmouth brother, sent me a text that just said, "You destroyed this family." I didn't reply. Jessica's father tried calling me twice. I ignored him both times. What did he expect? A heart-to-heart? The same man who looked at me like I was dirt under his boot now suddenly had questions? Not a chance. Only Lauren, Jessica's sister, reached out with anything worth hearing. "We need to talk," she said. We met at a small diner halfway between our places. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept since the dinner. Probably hadn't. "Mark moved out," she said, staring into her coffee. I didn't even have to ask. He knew it was over. I nodded. "He's still in uniform?" "Yeah." She laughed bitterly. "Too bad there's no uniform for being a decent human." We sat in silence for a bit. The waitress brought us eggs and toast. Neither of us touched them. "I don't get it," Lauren finally said. "She had everything. You were loyal, kind. You worshipped her." "That's the problem," I said. "She never wanted love. She wanted control." Lauren didn't argue. She just nodded slowly, like that truth had been sitting under the surface for years, waiting for someone to say it out loud. "I found out she's been lying to all of us," Lauren said. "About you. About everything. She told Mom you got dishonorably discharged. She told Dad you were gambling away your salary. She even said you hit her once years ago." My stomach turned. "I never laid a hand on her." "I know," Lauren said immediately. "We all know now. After the dinner, after Mark saluted you, everything started clicking. So that's what Jessica did. While I was halfway across the world dodging bombs, she was planting them back home, in my name. She wasn't just cheating on me physically. She was erasing who I was, rewriting me into a villain to make herself the victim. And her family bought it. Willingly. "Are they still defending her?" I asked. Lauren shook her head. "Not anymore. Mark confessed everything. He broke down. Said it started when she cornered him during your last deployment. He tried to stop it, but she was relentless. Of course she was. Jessica always got what she wanted. If she didn't, she manipulated until she did. Now finally the mask was off. I thanked Lauren and paid for her coffee. As we stood to leave, she touched my arm. "I hope you heal," she said quietly. "You deserve better." "I already feel better," I said. And for once it was true. Back at my apartment, the quiet felt different. Not empty, just mine. No perfume clinging to the sheets. No fake apologies. No locked phones or cold silences. Just me. And that was enough. Greg called that night. "She's trying to countersue," he said. "Claiming emotional abuse, military trauma, everything but alien abduction." "She has no proof," I said calmly. "She doesn't need proof, Tyler. She needs chaos. But we're ready." I smiled. Not because I liked this war, but because I'd already won. Jessica could scream, lie, twist, throw dirt in the air all she wanted. But the truth had already landed like a hammer. She was exposed, and I was no longer the man she could control. The court date came faster than I expected. Jessica walked in like she was heading to brunch. Not a divorce hearing. Tight dress, lips painted blood red, heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor. She looked at me with that same smug, soulless smile. The one that used to mean, "I love you," now looked more like, "I dare you." She didn't know it yet, but this was her final performance. Greg was calm as ever, suit sharp, voice steady. Her lawyer, some fresh-faced guy who probably thought this case would be easy, looked like he hadn't read more than half the file. That worked in our favor. We didn't come in swinging. We didn't need to. We let the screenshots speak. The messages, the hotel receipts, the time-stamped photos. Her own words bragging about how he's too dumb to figure it out, and I could drain him dry and he'd still beg me to stay. She shifted in her chair at that one. I didn't look at her. Then came the military character statements. From my commanding officer. From Reyes. From even Mark. Yes, Mark, who submitted a written statement taking full responsibility and admitting the affair began on Jessica's initiation. That was the final nail. The judge didn't even blink when he said she would get no alimony. She lost the house. She lost her last name. She walked out that courtroom with red cheeks and clenched fists, whispering curses under her breath. I didn't follow her, didn't speak to her, didn't need to. My war with Jessica was over, and I'd won. Moving on wasn't about finding someone else. It wasn't about filling the silence or getting even. It was about rediscovering who I was without her shadow over my shoulder. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I needed to understand why I let her lie to me for so long, why I ignored my gut, why I kept chasing peace with someone who only ever fed me chaos. Turns out, even soldiers carry emotional wounds. I've been patched up on the battlefield, but never off it. I sold our old SUV, got myself a used truck. Reliable, quiet, mine. Got back into working out, built a routine, made peace with solitude. One day, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, really looking for the first time in years. The tiredness was gone. My eyes weren't haunted anymore. I saw scars, sure, but not shame. One scar was shaped like a wedding band tan line. It faded eventually. And Lauren? She called me a few months later. She was doing well. Her kids were okay. Mark had gone back to his hometown. She told me, if I ever date again, I'm checking their soul before their job title. I laughed at that. We caught up like friends. Just friends. There was healing in that. I started writing, journaling. Maybe one day I'll turn it into a book. Not for revenge, but as a warning. Not all enemies wear uniforms. Some wear red dresses and smile while they stab you in the back. But they don't get to win. Not unless you let them. And me? I was done losing. It's been a year now. A year since that dinner, the one where my wife exposed herself without realizing it. A year since Mark saluted me and cracked open a truth I never meant to face in front of a room full of people. A year since I took off my wedding ring and started rebuilding from zero. You'd think the anger would have worn off first. But no, what faded first was the disbelief. At some point, you stop replaying it. The lies, the smirks, the gaslighting. You stop waking up in cold sweats wondering what you missed, because you realize it wasn't about what you missed. It was about what they lacked. Character, loyalty, courage. Jessica never had it. She wore confidence like armor, but underneath she was hollow. A shallow little girl in a woman's body, playing wife until she got bored. She thought cruelty made her strong. Didn't. It just made her predictable. And weak people, they always implode. Last I heard, she moved 2 cities over, started dating some realtor. Posts all her fake little sunsets on Instagram with captions like, healing and self-love. She even posted a quote the other week. Sometimes good people make bad choices. I almost laughed out loud when I saw it. She still thinks she's the good guy. But here's the truth. Good people don't destroy 2 families for fun. Good people don't look into their husband's eyes and lie, day after day. Good people don't play the victim when the fire they lit finally burns them. So no, Jessica, you weren't a good person. You were a skilled manipulator. And I was your best illusion. But that illusion is gone now. I'm different. I don't trust blindly anymore. I don't romanticize red flags and call it passion. I don't hand over my peace to someone just because they call it love. I know what real love looks like now because I've seen what it absolutely isn't. And no, I haven't dated again. Not seriously. I've had conversations, moments, a couple of coffees that turned into long walks. But I've learned not to rush the rebuild. You don't walk out of a wreck and straight into another car. You take the damn bus for a while. You breathe. You relearn how to sit still. My mornings are quiet now. I make my own coffee. I run 3 miles before sunrise. I work with veterans helping them transition to civilian life. Some of them come to me broken, betrayed, just like I was. I tell them what I learned the hard way. You didn't fail. They did. You didn't lose your worth. They never saw it. And most of all, you get to start over. You don't have to carry their dirt into your next chapter. That's the truth that saved me. Jessica tried to make me believe I was nothing without her. That I was a ghost who couldn't function outside of war zones and deployment schedules. But the real ghost was her. A woman so desperate to be desired, She burned everything just to feel warm for a minute. And me? I walked out of the ashes. Better. Wiser. Still standing. So if you're reading this, if someone lied to you, betrayed you, made you feel like the villain in your own life, let this be proof. You can survive. You will survive. Just don't look back too long. Because they're not chasing you. They're choking on their own smoke. And dinner? Still served cold. But now I'm the one at the head of the table.